as to the radiance of health to a degree. However, you must understand that there are many who experience severe physical disruptions in the body, blows to the spine, injuries to the heart, a knock on the head, certain diseases that cause imbalances to take place, and centers to open. These would enable any entity to develop its ESP, but would it help it to develop as a soul? This would be dependent upon the purpose of that of the same. Purpose is the key. Purpose is the key. What is the purpose of learning to develop this? For if it is for any other reason except the furtherment of the soul, it will be detrimental to that entity. If any entity should engage upon this pursuit for self-glorification, self-aggrandizement, self-satisfaction, then ultimately it must prove a severe disruption for that particular entity, and discontent will be its lot. See?
Many people associate psychic ability with higher soul involvement. Is this true?
Would ye say that any who would be as a barrister would be developing their soul? Would you say that the president of a corporation would be developing the soul, or a teacher, or one who would haul refuse? Nay, not so. For it is easy to develop that of the sixth senses, the psychic senses, without concerning itself over that of the soul. See?
How does one protect oneself or enable oneself to avoid becoming physically and or mentally depleted in interactions with others?
There is always an interchange, as you know, but this takes place constantly for those of a like mind, whether there is awareness of that of the same or not. Now, if each entity would place their first ideal, their first aspiration, towards that of the attainment of the Godhead itself, and settle for no less than this, and learning above all other learning, that the purpose in life is learn to love thy God with all thy heart, thy mind, thy body, and thy soul, then this would be protection enough. All other things would be of a secondary nature. There are simple techniques that the entity could practice, of simply saying that in a loving way you refuse to accept the inequities of others. There are mental techniques. Imagine thyself being surrounded by the love of God and protected within thy shell, so that naught may enter the perimeter of thy aura, except that it be blessing to thee. And as such, that which ye pray for is given to thee. See?
It is understood that there are some people who have the ability to draw most of their sustenance from the ethers, and consequently do not require much food. How is this possible, and would it be desirable from a soul development standpoint?
Did not that the master of masters feed the multitudes with the few fishes and the few loaves? And were these not multiplied and multiplied and multiplied? From what did he, that of the Jesus who attained the Christ consciousness, produce this abundance, so that the crumbs and the leavings were greater than that was the original offering? This entity so knew the law, understood the law, that he became the law, and all things were added unto he. Even the winds were at his beck and call. He and others before him and since him have been able to utilize this, and so can any other who wish to follow the example laid down by this entity and others. Now, it would not be understood by most, but man, as a physical being, as a physical body, needs not a morsel of food to pass its lips, and it could radiate perfect health. A sip of water occasionally is all that is really needed for those highly evolved souls who can understand the very manna of heavens can be as a source of energy to them in order to sustain the life force of the very body itself. This need not be taken in the form of air, foods, and water, can but be absorbed directly through every cell, every atom of the body, for those who are awed and love the God and have become knowledgeable co-creators with them. See?
If these persons are this evolved, why are they then still on the earth plane of existence?
Because they chose to come here to help those who are yet traveling the dark night of the soul. See?
What are the specific preparations to aid individuals in achieving out-of-body or astral projection experiences?
Go to sleep.
Consciously.
To consciously achieve this state.
Cannot be done consciously in the beginning. However, if the entities would perfect a degree of health that is necessary or advisable or helpful, we should say, enter into some exercises that are Eastern in nature, as of the yoga, in order to attain a more suppleness, a more freedom, less tension existent within the physical form. Learn to relax the physical body completely. Music, which is food for the soul, the finest food for the soul, would also be most helpful. Then you would find that the entity could more easily enter the holies of holies, and the mind could travel to or where or to what it wished to with recognition.
What are the specific preparations to aid individuals to see auras?
Evolve the soul, be more loving. As you do so, this will become more natural for thee, you see. This is a matter of conditioning as an individual thing and different for all, although it's basically the same for all. But this would be dependent upon what level of attainment, what level of attunement, what comprehensive level of at-one-ment has been experienced by the entity. This can be learned to a degree, but it can only be experienced when the entities have either experienced a sharp blow to the center of the forehead, the thyroid has been partially removed or diseased, or the entity makes the conscious effort to look for it by becoming more godlike in its life. Now, we're certain that you don't want that of the pituitary or the thyroid to be disrupted physically, so that of the third method often would be the more preferable. See?